Let's start with something most people won't admit out loud. Politeness can be a beautiful lie. It looks like kindness. It even feels like virtue, until the wrong person picks it up and uses it on you. Machiavelli never hated manners. He hated misplaced manners. He understood there are moments where courtesy doesn't just make you look weak. It paints a target on your back. When you're polite by reflex, you send a very clean signal to predators, manipulators, and opportunists. I care more about being liked than being respected. I'll avoid tension even if I have to betray my instincts. I'd rather keep the peace than win the game. They don't hear gratitude when you do that. They hear invitation. So, here's the frame for the whole video. There are specific situations where you must drop the smiles, the soft tone, the reflexive sorry, and the nervous little laugh. Not because you're turning cruel, but because you're finally waking up to how power really works. In those moments, your thank you turns into silence. Your I'm sorry becomes that's your problem. Your open handshake becomes a calm refusal. This is not you being rude. It's you choosing presence over performance. Situation 1. Someone crosses a boundary you never gave them permission to test. You'll recognize this pattern. They push lightly. They invade slightly. A comment just inappropriate enough to see if you'll flinch. A step too close. They talk over you and then glare like you interrupted them. And what do most people do? They grin. They laugh it off. They try to keep the vibe. Out comes the automatic politeness. Oh, no worries, it's fine. Haha, I'm probably being sensitive. This is a turning point. Right here they're measuring you. If you answer with politeness, they learn something about you that can't be unseen. You prefer harmony to self-respect. You prefer being liked to being taken seriously. And once they know that, they don't come back as a friend. They come back as a handler. Flip the script. You don't need to escalate, moralize, or write a speech. Make it cold and unmistakable. Meet their eyes and say, "Don't do that again." Or, "I didn't consent to that." Or don't say a word, just stop. Let the room go silent. Let the moment stretch, and then walk away. That quiet will ring louder than any explanation. It says everything they need to hear. I'm not the one. Situation 2. The weaponized apology. Not every sorry is an apology. Some are bait. They betray you, then immediately offer a scripted apology to trigger your politeness instinct. What they want isn't repair, it's your compliance on command. And you, trained to be nice, feel pressure to close the loop. It's okay. I understand. I forgive you. But what you really said was, you can reset the board anytime you want. Just act remorseful. You control when the healing starts. Machiavelli would torch that reflex. There's no virtue in forgiving someone who's exploiting your fear of being seen as bitter. You do not owe comfort because they mouth the word sorry. Let their apology land and go nowhere. Silence is an option. So are neutral lines like, "I heard you," or "Thanks for saying that." And then the crucial part, it doesn't change anything. That's not cruelty. That's sovereignty. The manipulator's worst nightmare is a person who can't be soothed back into submission. Situation 3. The chronic victim. You've met them. Every story puts them at the center as both hero and casualty. Every conversation is a request for validation, never clarity. If you're polite, you nod along, echo their outrage, and before you notice it, you've become their emotional employee. They feed on your patience and your politeness. Break the loop. Name the pattern or cut the fuel. Calmly. You always seem to end up in the same situation. What part of this do you own? Or, equally powerful, change the subject and stop supplying attention. Cold disruption snaps the cycle. They cannot feed on silence. They can't loop someone who won't play the script. That's the difference between being kind and being captured. Zoom out for a second. These aren't about being edgy. They're about being intentional. When you remove politeness from the wrong moment, it's like cutting oxygen from a flame. The chaos dies. The manipulation stalls. Performative remorse evaporates. You didn't yell. You didn't get dramatic. You simply chose to value your standards over social comfort. Here's the deeper problem. Our culture treats automatic politeness like a universal virtue. Smile when disrespected. Laugh when uncomfortable. Apologize for existing too loudly. That conditioning is why so many people confuse politeness with morality. Machiavelli understood what most people won't. In many moments, politeness isn't strength. It's submission dressed up as virtue. And it's most dangerous when it's automatic. When you smile, not because you're at peace, but because you're afraid to show fire. So let's get practical and make this real in your body. When a boundary is crossed, your move is a pause. No smile, no filler words, no nervous chuckle. Let the air thicken. If you speak, keep it surgical. Stop. No, we're not doing that. When a manipulative apology arrives, anchor yourself in neutrality. I heard you. Period. And then behave in alignment with your standard, not their script. When a chronic victim starts the monologue, decide whether you'll tell the truth or leave the stage. Either breaks the trance. Understand this. You're not removing politeness from your life. You're removing it from your default identity. You are becoming someone who can be warm on purpose and cold on cue. People learn fast who they can joke with, test, delay, or push. The winners in any niche of life aren't the most agreeable. They are the ones who teach others how to approach them. In the next section, we'll go further. Time wasters who stall to assert control, and the passive-aggressive players who try to shrink you with tone, timing, and silence. That's where strategic impoliteness becomes a precision tool. Now let's step into the fourth situation, one that almost everyone has felt but few ever name. When your time is being wasted deliberately. There are two types of time wasters in this world. The first is harmless, the disorganized, the distracted, the person who runs late because they don't have their life together. You can forgive that because it's sloppy, not strategic. But the second type is far more dangerous. The calculating time waster. They stall on purpose. They talk in circles. They book meetings with no real point. They keep you hanging on the phone or waiting in a lobby, not because they're busy, but because they want to see how much of your life you'll give away for free. And here's the hard truth. If you respond with politeness, smiling, nodding, reassuring them, it's fine, take your time, you've just failed a power test. You told them, my time doesn't matter unless you decide it does. And once you hand someone that key, they'll use it over and over until your schedule belongs to them. Machiavelli saw this as one of the highest forms of weakness. Why? Because once your time is negotiable, your power is negotiable. Whoever controls your time controls your momentum. They control when you move, when you stall, and when you lose ground. It's not just a calendar issue, it's psychological submission. So, how do you flip this? Machiavelli would never waste words with excuses. He would interrupt, cut short, walk away, not from anger, but from principle. His rule was simple. Time is the one resource you never negotiate. That means your politeness has to go cold. You don't explain. You don't keep apologizing for being impatient. You simply signal scarcity. Phrases like, let me know when you're ready to move forward. Or even colder, This doesn't seem like a priority for you. Let's revisit it when it is. That single sentence is worth more than hours of polite reminders. Why? Because it flips the frame. Suddenly, you're not the one waiting on them. They're the one at risk of losing you, and no one disrespects what they fear losing. Now, the fifth situation is even more subtle. When someone tries to intimidate you with passive power. This is not shouting, not open insults. It's quieter, a look that lingers too long, a tone just sharp enough to imply superiority, a pause before they answer you, stretched out to make you feel small. The way they say your name slowly, like a warning. If you respond with politeness, smiling to keep things smooth, softening your tone, pretending it doesn't sting, you lose the battle without even realizing there was one. Because here, the power doesn't come from their words. It comes from your reaction. They chip at your self-image, and politeness hands them the chisel. Machiavelli understood this form of warfare better than anyone. He studied the silent aggressors, the ones who attack just below the surface so you can't call it out without looking oversensitive. And his conclusion was brutal. If you stay polite in the face of that kind of game, you've already submitted. So, what's the counter? You hold your frame. You don't need to mirror their aggression. You don't need to raise your volume. All you do is strip the bait of its reward. Imagine someone speaks with that subtle condescension. Instead of smiling, you cut in, "Let's stay focused." Or, "If you have something to say it directly." Cold tone, no smirk, no soft edges. Or sometimes, the best move is silence. Just meeting their stare until the tension turns back on them. This isn't about outshouting anyone. It's about showing that you won't let a game of shadows chip at your frame. Cold neutrality beats fake politeness every single time. Now, here's the larger point you need to internalize. In all 5 of these situations, when your boundary is crossed, when apologies are weaponized, when you're trapped in someone's victim loop, when your time is being hijacked, or when passive aggression is used against you, the world expects you to be polite. That's the script. Society trains you to smile, to nod, to keep the peace. Because polite people are predictable, and predictable people are easy to box in, manipulate, and dismiss. But the second you turn politeness into a choice instead of a reflex, everything changes. You become unreadable, dangerous. Not because you're cruel, but because no one can steer you with social pressure anymore. This isn't about being rude. It's about becoming unshakable. It's about saying, "I'll choose when to be soft. You don't get to decide that for me." You walk into a room with that energy, and the power dynamic flips instantly. Think about this. Since childhood, you were trained to wear politeness like a leash, to apologize for bumping into someone even when they bumped into you, to smile when an adult made you uncomfortable, to say thank you for things you didn't want. That leash never left. It just grew invisible. Machiavelli would have spit on it. Not because he despised kindness, but because he despised submission disguised as kindness. So the next time you feel yourself defaulting to politeness, stop and ask, am I being polite because I mean it? Or because I'm afraid of what happens if I'm not? If the answer is fear, drop it. If it's instinct, sharpen it. If it's habit, break it. Because there's a time for manners, and a time for cold presence. And the dangerous ones, the ones who never get handled, never get boxed in, are the ones who know the difference. We've walked through the 5 traps. Moments where automatic politeness makes you look weak, predictable, or worse, controllable. Now let's talk about the deeper shift. How to install this Machiavellian mindset into your psychology so that politeness becomes your tool, not your leash. First, you have to redefine what politeness actually is. Most people confuse politeness with compliance. They think it means never interrupting, always smiling, letting someone finish even when they're wasting your time, saying it's okay even when it's not. That's not politeness. That's emotional obedience. True politeness is only powerful when it's optional. It's a posture you choose, not a mask that's welded onto your face. If you can't turn it off, then it isn't kindness, it's weakness. And Machiavelli's law was clear. Respect only flows to the person who could go cold at any moment. If you're always polite, no one fears losing your warmth. So here's the first step. Master the politeness to cold switch. There should be a visible shift in you when a line is crossed. Someone wastes your time. Your tone shifts from warm to unreadable in seconds. Someone tries to guilt-trip you with apologies. Your smile disappears and you answer with silence. Someone disrespects you in subtle ways. You cut the softness from your voice and speak with clean neutrality. That shift, calm but undeniable, is what teaches people your boundaries better than hours of explanation ever could. Second, you have to strip sorry from your default vocabulary. Politeness in modern culture has trained people to apologize for existing. You say sorry when someone else is late. You say sorry when you ask for clarity. You say sorry for your say, even when your words were true. Each of those small apologies sends the same signal. My boundaries are negotiable. Now, this doesn't mean you never apologize. Real harm deserves real repair. But most of what people apologize for isn't harm. It's firmness. And firmness is not cruelty. Firmness is trustworthiness. The leaders you follow, the people you admire, the ones you'd never dare push, they aren't constantly apologizing for being clear. So cut it. Replace, sorry, I can't, with, that won't work for me. Replace sorry for the delay with, here's the update. Replace sorry I was blunt with silence. You'll be shocked at how quickly people adjust when you stop apologizing for strength. They'll test you less, respect you more, and most importantly, you'll respect yourself more. Third, stop escaping tension with politeness. This is a huge one. Most people smile, laugh, or say, I know, not because they're at peace, but because they're afraid of discomfort. They use politeness like a fire extinguisher, spraying it on every spark of conflict. But Machiavelli understood that tension is where power lives. He would have leaned into that moment, not to escalate it, but to hold it. Picture this. Someone gives you a backhanded compliment, expecting you to laugh it off. Instead, you let the silence hang until they feel it. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence. Instead of chuckling awkwardly, you stop and say calmly, if you're not finished, I'll wait, but I'm not moving forward until you are. Someone tries to nudge you off your own decision. Instead of softening, you say, you don't have to agree with me. I don't need your permission. Those are not cruel lines. They're presence lines. They don't escalate. They dominate. They let the other person feel the weight of your refusal to escape the discomfort. And that sensation of you holding tension instead of dissolving it is unforgettable. Fourth, and maybe most important, you must make politeness a strategy, not an identity. Stop calling yourself a polite person. That's an identity trap. When people know you're always polite, they'll lean on it. They'll weaponize it. Instead, become a dangerous person who can choose to be polite. Let your politeness feel sharp, controlled, precise, not soft, obliging, or automatic. Imagine being the kind of person who when you say thank you or I appreciate that, people notice. because they know it could just as easily have been silence or "don't do that again." The man who always speaks softly is forgettable, but the man whose politeness is selective, he becomes unpredictable. He becomes the storm everyone else adjusts their sails for. Understand, you don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to break things, raise your voice, or act like some edgelord caricature. You just need to withdraw politeness in the exact moments when weakness expects it. Give it only to those who earn it. That is how you become unforgettable, not because you were the kindest, but because you were the one no one could predict. Politeness is a currency, and like any currency, its value drops when you hand it out too freely. Machiavelli didn't fear being disliked. He feared being disrespected, because affection fades. Respect lingers. Fear of your coldness lingers even longer. And here's the paradox. The people who truly respect you don't need constant politeness. They need clarity. They need firmness. They need someone uncompromising when it matters. When you master this switch, warmth when it's earned, cold when it's necessary, you stop blending in. You start setting the tone in every room you enter. In the next part, we'll codify this into 5 commandments of Machiavellian politeness, rules that lock these shifts into your daily life so deeply that no one, not even you, forgets where the line truly is. Now that you understand the mindset, let's lay it out clearly. If you want to take back control of your presence, your boundaries, and your respect, there are 5 commandments of Machiavellian politeness. Think of them as laws, rules that you follow until they're not just tactics, but reflexes. Commandment 1. Politeness is earned, not distributed. Most people hand out politeness the way a store hands out plastic bags, automatically, without thought. Please and thank you for people who violate your space, waste your time, or play games with you. That's not kindness, it's comfort, and comfort is a privilege. You can treat anyone with dignity. You can treat anyone with humanity. But dignity is not the same thing as comfort. Comfort is reserved for those who've earned it. Commandment 2. Never be polite to avoid conflict. This is the trap most people fall into. They think politeness keeps the peace. But when avoiding conflict costs you your self-respect, that's not peace. It's surrender. The moment you prioritize not being disliked over being respected, you've already chosen to lose. Real power is being willing to walk away from a fake friendship, a hollow connection, or a fragile alliance, rather than give up your authority over yourself. Commandment 3. Politeness is not morality. You can be moral without being polite. You can be good and still be cold. You can be just and still be terrifying when someone crosses the line. Never confuse warmth with wisdom. Cultures survive on this illusion, that the friendliest person must be the kindest. The one who smiles most must be the safest. That's how manipulators thrive. They weaponize charm, weaponize warmth, weaponize nice. Machiavelli would remind you, morality is about actions and consequences, not tone of voice. Commandment 4. When in doubt, go silent. Silence is more powerful than any polite phrase. A forced smile, a reflexive "sorry," or an "it's fine" trains people to think they can test you without consequence. Silence, on the other hand, makes people feel your presence. It forces them to face the tension they created. It makes them break the awkward pause, not you. Silence is not absence, it's pressure. It's the kind of pressure that teaches faster than any explanation. Commandment 5. If they mistake your politeness for weakness, punish them with absence. Here's the most Machiavellian move of all. Don't fight, don't argue, Don't over-explain. Withdraw. Remove access. Not to be petty, but to send a message that burns deeper than any confrontation. Access to me is not unconditional. The second they learn that, the frame shifts forever. They realize politeness from you is a privilege, and losing it feels like oxygen being cut from the room. Now you might be thinking, but what if I go too far? What if I become cold in situations that don't deserve it? Here's the answer. You're not removing politeness from your toolkit. You're removing it from your default identity. Right now, you've been conditioned to give politeness reflexively, like a servant bowing when the master walks by, like prey lowering its eyes in front of a predator. That's not kindness, that's pre-installed submission. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in denying warmth. It was in knowing when warmth is suicide. He would tell you, be polite to those beneath you, but never so soft they mistake you for weak. Be polite to those beside you, but only when the respect is mutual. Be polite to those above you, but only to buy time, until you're ready to replace them. Everything else? Calculated silence. And here's what happens when you live by these commandments. You stop being predictable. People start to wonder, why is he polite to me? What would happen if I crossed him? Has he gone cold on others? That uncertainty is the beginning of respect. When people aren't sure where they stand with you, they stop trying to test you. They stop pushing because they don't know what you'll do if they push too far. Machiavelli loved variables, unpredictable elements that kept others off balance. That's exactly what strategic politeness turns you into. You're not confusing, you're not erratic. You're simply selective. You're the one person no one can read with complete certainty, and uncertainty is power. But there's still one more step. Because even with commandments, there comes a moment in every power dynamic where someone presses too far. They ignore all the subtle cues. They test one too many times. They push a silent disrespect across the table with a smile. This is the breaking point. The moment where most people still try to patch things up, smooth the surface, or maintain rapport. You must not. This is where you cut the cord. In the next part, we'll talk about that final moment, the art of going completely still, completely cold, completely silent, and how that one move imprints itself into people's memory as your true Machiavellian signature. There always comes a moment in every power dynamic where someone presses just a little too far. They ignore the subtle cues. They push past the soft boundary. They smirk while slipping a quiet disrespect across the table. And this is where most people fail. Instead of standing firm, they cling to politeness. They try to patch things up, to keep the peace, to smooth it all over. They still play diplomat when the time for diplomacy has already ended. That's where you do the opposite. You cut the cord. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't try to convince. You don't escalate. You simply go still, silent, blank. You drain every ounce of warmth from the moment, and you leave them with nothing but the echo of their own disrespect. And in that vacuum, they feel it. They feel the realization rise in their chest. This is not a person I can handle like the others. That unspoken sentence becomes your real signature, not your friendliness, not your niceness, your unpredictability, your refusal to play the script. That's the Machiavellian imprint. They never forget it. Here's the closing truth. Politeness is not a truth. It's a tool. You are not here to be digestible. You are not here to be everyone's comfort. You are not here to smile through every violation or soften every strong sentence. You are here to move, to build, to claim your space, and force the world to adjust to your presence. So if someone misreads your coldness, let them. If they call you rude, intimidating, distant, let them. That's not your problem. Their judgment doesn't weaken you. Your submission does. The real danger isn't being misunderstood. The real danger is teaching yourself over and over that your power is optional. Think about it. Every time you say, "It's fine," when it isn't. Every time you smile when you should be silent. Every time you apologize for being firm, you're telling them how to treat you. And worse, you're telling yourself that your strength is negotiable. It's not. So be polite when it's earned. And when it's not, be Machiavellian. Let the silence speak. Let the coldness land. Let the tension burn. Because in the end, they won't remember the words you said. They'll remember the moment you refused to play along. Here's how to anchor this in your psychology so deeply it becomes automatic. 1. Politeness is earned, not owed. Train yourself to pause before you say please or thank you. Ask, have they earned this comfort? 2. Conflict is not the enemy. Avoiding it at the cost of your dignity is surrender, not peace. 3. Good and cold can coexist. You can be just, moral, even compassionate, and still cut someone off when they push too far. 4. Silence is pressure. Use it when you're unsure. It teaches more than words ever could. 5. Absence is punishment. When someone mistakes kindness for weakness, withdraw. Don't argue, don't fight, remove access. When you live this way, politeness stops being your identity and becomes your strategy. People stop knowing you as the nice one and start knowing you as the one you don't cross. Your thank you suddenly has weight. Your I appreciate that actually means something. Because everyone knows it could just as easily have been silence, or worse, your cold withdrawal. The one who is always polite is always available. And the one who is always available is always taken for granted, or used. That's not your path. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't worship cruelty, but he did worship clarity. And he knew the truth. Respect is built on unpredictability. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest. It's the one you can't predict. The one who smiles when he means it, and goes silent when he doesn't. So, here's your challenge. From now on, stop giving politeness away as a reflex. Turn it into a currency. Spend it with precision. Hold it back when respect isn't mutual. And when the moment comes, when the disrespect crosses the line, don't speak. Don't smile. Don't explain. Go cold. Because in that silence, they'll feel everything. And long after the words are forgotten, that silence will remain. That is your true Machiavellian power.